Welcome to the Holistic Growth Podcast, navigating business and natural health and functional medicine, where we bring you insights and strategies to help grow your practice and amplify your impact. Well, welcome everybody to the Holistic Growth Podcast. I'm Dr. Tracey Stroup. I'm the Chief Health and Growth Officer right here at Get Healthy. We host this podcast every week where we bring in unique and wonderful people from our industry. Today, I have Véronique Ory. She is Yoga with Véronique. And I'm really excited because we have an incredible topic that, well, I don't think we talk about enough. And that is the healthcare professional. And you don't have to earn rest running a practice without running yourself into the ground. I love that topic. I don't think it's talked about enough. So I'm super excited to discuss this with our guest and to find out how we can actually have rest and not need to earn it. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here, Véronique.
Thank you, Tracey. Really happy to be here with you.
Well, give us a little background about yourself. I think your background's so interesting, and we haven't had a yoga instructor on the show, so you're our first. So give us some history and background about you.
Oh, thank you. So I am originally from Montreal. I come from Hungarian and French roots. I grew up performing shows in my grandparents' living room, and that naturally parlayed into studying theater. I love bringing people together for thought-provoking experiences, and so I was really drawn to dark comedies and dramas, and ended up founding a nonprofit organization at 22 years old in Los Angeles. And I definitely grew up with a lot of I'll say left brain qualities, and then also a lot of organization from a lot of finance and accounting in my family. My mom, from my earliest memories, would have long to-do lists, and I could just see her crossing things off. And so even at like a young age, I was making to-do lists and felt like that was the most important thing, was to be productive and to achieve and to always be in forward motion. And that's what really helped me found my own company. And because I have that engine or that fire in me and that sort of type A quality, I definitely had many, many years where I slept very little. I just felt like I wanted always to be plugged in. You know, even though it was an arts company, I felt like if I wasn't doing something in connection to the company's growth, that I was wasting time. And I even had a roommate at the time sit me down one day and ask if I would just not work so much because he would feel guilty watching TV. And I said, I'm sorry, I have to be in forward motion or I'll die. You know, I just felt like I really wanted the scale of the productions and the legacy of the company to reach what I had in my mind as high quality, you know, where people would be talking about this transformational piece that they saw. And so as that theater company shifted away from published works, so I did a lot of revivals during the LA days, and then when I moved to New York, it shifted into championing emerging playwrights, and definitely was running myself ragged. But I think what's so important about this is when we're in stride, whatever industry we're in, it's like, I liken it to running a marathon. So oftentimes I would hear people say, like, I don't understand how you do this. And I think it's like when you hit stride, like whatever it is we do begets more of what we do. So if we're eating the good thing, we want to do more of that. If we're in a regular movement or exercise rhythm, we want to do more of that. If we're used to, you know, binging Netflix every night, then we want to do more of that. You know, whatever the thing is, we want to do more of that. And so because I was in that sort of loop, I just continued, and it almost created more space speed and more availability to do more the more that I did. And so it really wasn't until, and this I think is probably so many people, we could just have a whole book series of what people did during COVID or any kind of natural disaster that came through, something that happens exteriorly that forces our business to pause or our personal life to pause, where all of a sudden then we're reckoned with maybe a lot of exhaustion that we weren't really privy to because we were in pace, right? So people talk a lot about this if you're a runner, where you might be in stride and it's not until you finish the race where your legs are starting to talk to you, right? You could be running to a certain deadline, or you could be trying to meet a certain quota during a quarter or something, and it's not until you kind of reach that point of completion where you realize, oh, I'm exhausted. And usually if the mind doesn't catch up to it, the body will. And so that's why a lot of my friends and clients, if they try to skip our sessions and like push through a work deadline, I lovingly tell them, like, you're about to get sick. I can just feel it, because the body will force us to rest. And it's not going to be a kind of rest that we want, right? We want to rest with purpose rather than it being forced upon us by, we're sick. So I think that it's been so pointed out to me in our own ability, our own fortitude to move through, because we have so much resilience and strength that we actually can do more than we give ourselves credit for oftentimes. And also, I definitely saw in that pause during Hurricane Sandy while I was living in New York, and I was running a million miles an hour and was forced to stop. And then like that fated moment where a roommate at the time invited me to a yoga class. And then it was like, oh, this automatic response of inhales and exhales that we don't have to consciously think about. When you actually consciously think about it, you realize how exhausted, or I realized how exhausted I was. And I started to become very intimately acquainted with my inner world, which was certainly physically, but also the emotional piece as well. So that really took hold and changed the whole trajectory of my journey. And there were a lot of pieces within that, but it was really astounding to witness how these sort of threads, they continued through, and in the weaving of that, I've started to reprogram what I thought was the metric of success, what I thought was when I would earn rest or earn the vacation or earn the treat, fill in the blank of what we think that we deserve after working really hard, and be in a really loving conversation of what actually is it that I need. And so that's something that I cultivate in my own personal practice, and I invite people into as well.
Well, I think you've like summarized my life there with the go, 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 go. So I think it's a societal kind of just basic belief that rest is lazy. And I think, we've been kind of ingrained with that thought. I remember, when I was little, I had a family member tell me when I was reading a book, they're like, "Why are you reading a book?" I was like, "I don't know, I'm just reading it." And they were like, "Psh, reading's for lazy people." And I was like, "Oh." And I remember that completely like crushed my love of reading. And I didn't read ever since. So then it was only later that I realized, like, oh, reading relaxes me. I like this. I like to be able to sit and kind of go somewhere else with my thoughts and not be inundated with the wash and my business and what clients protocols do I have to write and all the things that we get overwhelmed with. So this is a really important topic. I want the practitioners that are listening today to understand that if we don't spend time working on our own health as we guide others, we're eventually going to wear out of us. There's only so much we can give from that empty cup. And we are the worst at taking our own advice. So, um, did you, and just hearing that you actually lived a version of that of yourself is very good to know, because I can see, if you guys would just see her, I can see her, but how relaxed she is, and just she has this glow about her. It's a beautiful thing to see. So, um, let's talk a little bit about some of the warning signs that maybe a practitioner listening to this that could differentiate between building and thriving and grinding. Like, what are some things that you see that might look like success but aren't really successful, that practitioners think are successful, but really internally it's not? They're just grinding.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much to say on this. So one of my cut throughs, and if this feels elusive at first, stay with me. Sometimes I get a little ethereal because I love to connect metaphors and to be in connection to something that we know outside of ourselves. And then the embodiment of it is really powerful. So when I think about my attention to a relationship, an experience, any kind of attention that's related to output, let's say. So that could be your work, it could be a relationship, anything that you're pouring out into. If that feels like steam, so like steam, I think is like expansive, it's airy, I feel very floaty, I feel in flow, versus if I'm an output and I'm feeling like ice, where it's like constricted and maybe my breath is more held and I feel like I have to kind of like round in and protect. It feels like there's kind of like these like bouncing cells like moving like really, really quickly versus like outward and expansive and feeling. And we can start to play with that as a shortcut, because once you tap into this, you'll you'll all of a sudden be like, oh, this person feels like steam. This person feels like ice. Like you might encounter that person at the supermarket, or someone who cuts you off on the street or whatever, and it's like steam, ice, and so what you can do in the identifying of it is you can think about, okay, where is my relationship to a self-made reciprocity? So this is a little bit of a shift away from I have to fill my cup up before I can pour into others. I think about reciprocity like waterfall energy. So in the giving is the receiving. And so you're not pouring out and then waiting, but you're actually in a dance of, and this is where, people who volunteer and they give back and they're, connected to service. In the giving is the receiving, right? When you're in connection to purpose, that's that steam energy. If you're pouring into something that isn't in alignment, you don't even have to name why, but you have like resistance to it, or it feels like heavy. Right? Like I think of that as like that ice kind of energy. It just feels heavy versus steam, which feels very light and airy. Then you can start to identify, okay, this feels where I want to pour more into because it's just in flow. And then you can just slowly start to create space from the people, the experiences, and the things that feel like they're pulling or they make you feel heavy. And so some of the physical signs that you might notice, it's like once you know, you can't unknow. Furrowed brow.
Ready.
What's that?
I said, I'm ready for it. Tell me.
Yeah. So your furrowed brow, your shoulders are rounding, you're slouching. So, and because I studied theater, I'm very aware of body language. And what's so wild is when you look at people in relationship, we tend to mirror body language, right? If someone is evading eye contact, we might find ourselves doing the same thing. If someone is, sitting here with their arms crossed, and that's like a sign of guarding, we might just subconsciously start to do this. But if we're around people that are making eye contact, the shoulders are back, the spine is tall, there's a sense of poise, then we are kind of leaning in. It's like, oh, like this feels like elegant, it feels graceful, it feels confident, it feels inspiring. And so that feels like that regenerative kind of energy, that in the connection of it, I'm leaving this encounter feeling energized versus I leave this encounter and I feel like I need to take a nap or like reach for like the easy thing to dull or distract. And so that's really telling too. It's like if you're leaving an encounter and you feel like you have to like reach for, something sweet or a processed food, or all of a sudden you have to like scroll on on Instagram, whatever, all of a sudden you're like, I have to go like online shopping, whatever your thing is, it's probably an indication that there's something about that encounter that's making you physically want to escape. And so it'll be really interesting after hearing that, how you'll sort of experience each subsequent encounter and get just a little bit more refined and a little bit more honest of what are the instances that feel like the uplift and what are the instances that allow you to feel a bit worn out or a bit exhausted.
Yeah, I've had some of that identification in my own practice, like where I know like things that really make me feel like, oh yeah, I'm excited about this. And then there's other parts of it where I'm like, that really just wears on me. And one of the things is just consultations in general. You know what I mean? I get on consults and I might have 3 or 4 in a row, and I just feel completely worn down. So I had to tell my team, like, I can do this many consultations because what we work with is cancer, and it's very emotional. It's a lot of energy and focus. And I had to just honestly take a look at myself and my capacity and be like, I can't do more than this because not only doesn't it serve me, it doesn't serve the person. So I think really reflecting on what you said for the practitioners listening, super important. You have to understand what builds you and what drains you. And, being able to balance that, especially when you own your own practice, is tough. So, but I love this idea of you don't have to earn rest, because entrepreneurs are notorious in saying, well, I'll slow down after I hit this goal. So why is that mindset so difficult for us to break? What have you found in your experience?
Yeah, the thing that wants to be celebrated, which I'd love to get on a megaphone about, is the rested person. And, you don't have to live in an urban environment or a fast-paced city to run into someone. Even in my small little town, I run into someone and it's like, oh, I'm exhausted. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, my hip hurts. Oh, like I'm not sleeping well. Whatever the thing is, like I'm in the middle of this house project and it'll never get done. Whatever the thing is, versus how's it going? Oh, I just had the best sleep last night. I'm doing what I love. I just feel really in flow. Later, I'm getting a massage and I'm going to meet up with a friend, walk the beach. And I just love the sunsets here. What about you?
I know. I mean, I live in Pennsylvania, so we have rays of sadness that come from the sky. So we don't have a beach yet, but my soul, I think, lives at the beach. My body is just physically here.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's so telling, and maybe we could each try this on as an exercise. Where is the place? Who are the people? And what are you doing where you feel the most enlivened? And seek the energetics of that daily. That's not like, oh, I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to have one holiday a year and I'm going to go do that and I'm going to go right back to the grind. But actually, where is the place? Who are the people? And what are you doing where you feel most enlivened, and incorporate the energetics of that daily? And so that could be, you're doing the dishes, right? But there's a quality of, I get to do this.
right.
And that's so important, right? Like, it doesn't have to be you splurge on, like a full spa day. Like, I've definitely had a really great, 5-minute stretch session on my porch and felt really great. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think that's really important to understand, that you can create little micro holidays for yourself on the daily, in the same way that you brush your teeth twice a day, that you tend to, washing your body, I hope, once a day, that you tend to a celebration of the energetics in which you wish to embody every single day. So that looks different for each of us. For me, sitting at the beach with a drink with an umbrella is not appealing. Like, I'm a more active person. Like, I'd be more apt to be like diving waves or on a hike or, something like that. Whereas maybe someone listening wants to just tour a museum on a random Tuesday on their lunch break. You know what I mean? So there could be little pockets of it. And so anyone who uses an electronic calendar, which you could do also with a printed calendar, but I really do love using an electronic calendar because you can, at a glance, see the balance of what your attentions are. So you might have your appointments in a certain color. You could have attentions to self-care in a different color, your attentions to fun time with friends, or you're dancing, or maybe you're playing the guitar, or you're reading, so that at a glance you could feel like, is there a certain semblance of balance happening where my attentions are feeling like they're being coupled? So in the yoga practice, it's like, if we're doing all of these heart openers, we want to have counter shapes. And so we open up through the back of the heart, maybe the sides of the heart, so that you're not constantly in one motion. So it's the same thing in our attentions, in work, in our personal life, that we want complements to where our attentions are.
Okay, I see. That's interesting. I never thought about that with the yoga postures, where you have different balances to each part of the body. So super interesting. Mike, I wanted to talk a little bit about your Shine Collective, the program that you were talking about before we jumped on the podcast, and just maybe give our practitioners a little insight on what you do, how you do it, and how they benefit. Because I really think that we do all these things publicly, right? Go on Instagram, you'll see 50 Instagrams of practitioners making a smoothie, taking their supplements, doing all these things, but you never really see them, embracing their rest, or just being like, oh, this week, part of my healthy lifestyle was going outside for 15 minutes and sitting in the sunshine. Like, I really think this whole idea of being busy and being successful, equals productivity. And that's not true, because burnout is where that leads, not always to success or a higher bank account. So what do you offer in the Shine membership, and what all is entailed there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the impetus of Shine, it originally is a book. It's a coffee table style book that I published called Shine On and Off the Mat. And it is a guide. So I love to think of it as being a guide, because really it's like, take the seed and plant it where you want, or maybe you hold on to it and save it for later. Like, really allow for intuition to guide you of how you want to move through it. So there's themes that will guide you through a process that are given weekly. You can go in order, or you can pick the theme that resonates for the moment. It started in 2020, where I had this opening when the world shut down, where it was like this burr in my brain that I really wanted everyone to feel empowered, that whether we have a physical place to go to practice, that we should actually feel empowered to practice anytime, anywhere, that it doesn't have to be at a certain place. You don't have to wear yoga clothes. You don't even need a yoga mat. You could be in the practice just in between clients. You could secretly be in the practice if you're queuing at the post office. There's ways to integrate the practice throughout your daily rhythm. And so that's the invitation that we shine, meaning we tap into our own vitality and vibrancy in the way that resonates for each of us. So, for example, say you start with the first theme, which aptly is let go. We can certainly know how we were practicing let go 6 years ago. We know how we're practicing let go today, right? It could be a thought. It could be a relationship. It could be that client that you want to break up with, whatever the case may be. And so you might think about, okay, what is a way to do this with grace and with kindness, where I can let go with intention, not as a knee-jerk reaction, not because, I said that this was the theme for the week and you have to let something go, but because it feels true to you. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be in the mind meal of that, you can let it be a practice of self-inquiry. If you want some guidance, there's a 3-part video series that accompanies each theme: a 20-minute guided meditation, a 20-minute movement practice, which is a vinyasa style practice of breath with movement, and then a yin style practice, which is stretching and restorative, mostly laying down or seated. So you could do the 20-minute practices separately, all together. Up to you if you want to repeat them multiple times during the week, or if you want to spread them out throughout the week. It's really a choose your own adventure of how you want to move with the practices. And then the idea is that you incorporate that idea of the movement and the breath and the intention coming together so that you're able to move through something that perhaps is stagnant or is blocking you from feeling that sense of thriving. So it just is a helpful way to perhaps see a different perspective on how you're orienting in your life. And then there's a music playlist that connects to the practices. There's a journal prompt if you want to write it out. Sometimes people like to do voice notes. And then within the Shine membership, it's a global community. You can share publicly in the space. Or what I think is really great is, you could say, hey, Tracey, do you want to do this practice together Thursday at 11 a.m.? You can hop on a video call or a phone call, move through the practice, and then have a conversation about it of, oh, what are you letting go of?
Yeah, which client? No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding.
Let me count the ways.
When you said that, I was like, why are people coming to my mind? No, so, well, this is amazing. If someone's listening and wants to make one small shift this week, what would you want that to be for them?
Yeah, I would really sit with cultivating a sweet morning for yourself. So if that feels elusive, you can definitely reach out to me. One of my favorite things to do is to be in the connection and be in conversation of what lights up your soul. So for me, if you want a little inspiration, is I love to connect to nature, learning something, and connecting to spirit. So that could just be in silence, kind of listening in, like what message wants to come through today. And only after I've tended to a little bit of movement, probably walking my dog, I'll come back. Only then do I engage in what I call the horizontal plane, where I might, check messages. But to really, really encourage, unless you absolutely need to check your messages as soon as your eyes open, I would recommend your phone be as far away from your head as possible when you sleep. If you can hold out even 5 minutes and then eventually build up to having a really nice hour before you engage in any kind of messaging, it's so I would love to hear just a week of that practice, how that would land with you, because I promise you'll feel more rested, more regulated, more apt to meet whatever comes your way if you really create a really sweet pocket for yourself, especially first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I used to get up, grab my coffee and go for a walk. And I thought, that's what I should be doing. It's productive. And, I mean, while I felt good walking, it wasn't like my first instinct in the morning. I wanted to go outside, but I didn't want to really do. It was just more doing for me. I still walk, I just do it in the evening. So now what I do is I absolutely, my phone will be inundated with messages right out of the gate. So I don't even look at it. I might check the time to make sure, because, if I have an alarm where I'm getting up, I want to get up and have some time in the morning to create this little sweet pocket you're talking about. So I just want to say I've implemented this over the last probably 6 months. So I come downstairs, I don't even look at my phone. I might have it with me. I get my coffee, I go outside. I have a little porch, like, fire that I turn on and I kick my feet up and I just sit out in the natural light and just let that kind of wake me up and bring up my natural cortisol levels and listen to the sounds of, the chickens and the birds and of course the dogs barking. But other than that, but it really does regulate you because you can get all caught up in the doing. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
even though exercise, I'm not downing exercise for those of you who love to exercise in the morning. That is not me. But I will tell you, if I'm at a beach, the very first thing I want to do is go walk on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's different where you are, where you're located, what kind of aligns with you. But, in all of these years, 27 years in practice, like I'm finally learning, like if I don't slow down and recharge myself, I can't help anybody else recharge throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love this perspective that you're bringing to the industry. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Well, this has been wonderful. We will put everything in the show notes for you to connect with uh, Veronique and to get the Shine book, maybe for their own office. That would be a nice little tool to put in the waiting room, I think, for people that want to slow down as well. I mean, I know we preach this to our clients, but how many of us actually take it on? So, Veronique, thank you so much for joining me. I think the reminder today is simple, right? You don't have to destroy your own health to build a successful health and wellness business. And maybe the next level of growth isn't really doing more. It's probably just becoming more intentional about how we're living, how we're leading, how we're showing up every day. So, guys, if you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with somebody else, a practitioner who needs to hear this wonderful, peaceful advice, and make sure that you subscribe and give us a follow. And do you want to leave our listeners with any final word?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think we're definitely shifting out of this era of a bit of voyeurism of we'll listen to the thing or we'll scroll on whatever. I really invite everyone listening to lean in and take action in a way that resonates for you. So that could be sharing this with someone. It could be trying out the Shine membership. It could be deciding that you're going to shape shift your morning and actually make a shift, because that has a really powerful ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for all your wisdom you've poured out on us today. Guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on our next episode.